right, Scott, tell me a bit about yourself.
Obviously, sell real estate for a living, work for McGain Real Estate. I actually came to South Australia from WA, so I grew up on a farm, 4,500 acres. About the time the recession we had to have was on, I needed to find a job. And leaving school was pretty tough to find one, so I actually joined the army and from there did an apprenticeship as a fitter and turner. Found myself living in every state in Australia bar Tasmania. And of course, when a young boy travels, what does he do? He finds a young girl, and I met Michelle, and she was a South Australian girl, and that's how I ended up in Adelaide.
It seems to be a long jump from the army to real estate. How did you make that jump?
I actually feel that the jump wasn't as big as people think. Being a fitter and turner is you're a problem solver, so you're fixing problems, you're mechanical, you're sourcing whatever's going wrong, you're trying to fix it. It's no different in real estate. I'm here to solve people's problems. They want to get from one place to another, so I've got to diagnose and find a solution, and that's what we do.
I'm looking to get into the housing market. What do I need to look for in a real estate agent?
For me, if it was someone looking to sell, there's been some research done by realestate.com that I think is really interesting. They found, of all the people they surveyed that sold a house, that the single most scary thing for a homeowner was the choice of a real estate agent. I think the reason why that is the most scary is because most homeowners don't know what to actually ask or what to actually look for. The one thing you've got to look for as an owner is what does actually the agent need to do for you? Where is your house? What suburb is it in? What type of product are you selling? How does it need to be marketed? All those questions need to be asked so that you can come up with the agent that's going to suit you best.
Let's say I'm looking to sell a house. What do I look for in an agent?
I think that's a very interesting question. A lot of the people that are looking to sell, I feel like when I go to visit them, they actually really don't know what they're looking for. And they feel that all agents are the same and that all agents will get them the same price. One of the things that I found over the years, if I gave the same 10 buyers to 10 different agents to sell the same house, all those agents would come up with a different price. And so as an owner, you've got to actually then work out what you need in an agent. Quite often, the type of house you're selling, the suburb you live in, whether you need a local agent or a development specialist, or all those sorts of things come into a factor. And I think the more research you can do as an owner to work out what type of agent you're looking for is actually going to benefit you a lot, because that is, according to realestate.com, the most stressful decision that a homeowner has to make is who they choose as an agent.
What about the size of an agency? Some people say go with a bigger agent, get a better price.
I definitely think, from my perspective, working for McGain Real Estate, it's a huge benefit because we've got 18 full-time agents. We all work out of the same database. We run over 60 open for inspections every single weekend. If there's a buyer out there for your property, more than likely a McGain agent has met them before. So it's a big advantage when you're looking to employ an agent in making sure that you find someone who meets more buyers, which means they've got a higher chance of actually being able to sell your price to the best buyer in the market, not just any buyer.
What's the most common misconception when choosing an agent?
A lot of people think that the cheapest agent is the best agent because they're obviously assuming that the price that we're going to get is the same. Now, if the price is different, if I was able to achieve $20,000 more than someone else, then of course, any cost factor that is different is going to be well offset by their bottom line and what they actually receive in their hand at the end of the process.
What's unique about your process?
I really think that's about the preparation that I put into researching someone's home before I go out and see them. I've got to know who the potential target markets are, what the potential sales are in that area for a similar product. Who I think the buyer is a really interesting question, because quite often the type of buyer we're looking for may not actually be looking in the suburb that we're actually going to sell in. And how we attract those people with the most amount of money to that owner's property is definitely through a lot of experience and knowledge about who we're looking for.
Have you got a story that best encapsulates your process?
One of the ones that I've done very recently in Aberfoyle Park, it's a little property at Homestead Drive. I was actually referred to the property by a past client, and this particular past client has referred me 8 properties. It's a little 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house, nice entertaining area, nice shed, normally worth sort of the 380 sort of mark. We actually achieved 405,000. We had over 30 groups through the first open for inspection, had multiple offers, and the owners are obviously very happy. Their dream price was 400,000 and then we got 405. The ability to work out who the target market was, market well, attract that many buyers, create that competition and get them that price is an outstanding result, because they now get to go and buy a better house than what they actually thought they were going to be able to afford, which is amazing.
We always hear from real estate agents, it's always a good time to buy or sell. How's the market at the moment?
And I always ask them, why are you asking? Because to me, the market doesn't really matter if they're buying and selling in the same market. Everyone just wants to know if their house has gone up in value, and as we know, over time, more than likely, they do. The market does one thing. It exposes people that have made a bad decision, and fortunately for us, that's a very small portion of the market. So when someone asks me how the market is, always like to find out why they're asking. It can be a big difference between someone who's just asking to find out if their house has gone up 20,000 or someone who may be having some problems and may be thinking about selling.
Given that I'm a potential seller, what other questions should I be asking?
You know, there's opportunities in every single market, whether it's low or high, and people, you know, that are looking to sell, if they're just upgrading from a smaller house to a bigger house, it's a great time for them because the opportunity for them to buy the house that they want to buy at a better price is now. So, you know, just because, you know, finance is getting a little bit harder to get because of the Royal Commission and the things that are going on there, and the fact that they're clamping down on first home buyers and the way we spend our money, and so therefore they're going to be a lot tighter in who's actually going to be able to borrow money, which ultimately means there's going to be less buyers in the marketplace, which could mean that there's going to be, you know, a little less competition than there was over the last few years. Doesn't mean it's necessarily a bad thing. Doesn't mean it's a bad time to sell. It's just how we react to that market that, you know, we've got to teach people. And once people know and understand the market like that, I think they'll be able to make better decisions, which is kind of my aim by wanting to put out this information, is so that people can make better decisions. So I meet less people in the lounge room that have made bad ones.
Given I'm a potential seller, what other questions should I be asking?
When it comes to the market, Graeme, you know, you want to know in your particular circumstance how the market is going to affect you. Because I think for the different segments of the market, so whether you're a first home buyer that's looking to sell their first home, or someone who's downsizing, or someone who's looking to upgrade, that's a different answer for all those different segments of the market. For instance, a big portion of our market is looking to downsize. There's a lot of people that are baby boomers that are looking at, all the kids are up and moved out, and, you know, they've got a bit extra space and they're looking to take a holiday or two. And so for those people who are selling a larger value house and going to a smaller value house, I actually think for those people to have a look at their options as quickly as they can, because if the market gets a bit tougher in the next 2 or 3 years, then the value of their house may slightly back off, and there may be less buyers around, which less competition can generally have a smaller price. So for those people, anyone looking to do that, I would be assessing my options now to see if it is a viable option for them to maybe speed that up a fraction.
Why should I choose you to sell or buy my home?
The number one thing that I can give you is a disciplined, honest, strategic process that is going to result in the maximum amount of buyers to create the competition and get the best price we can possibly find. You know, I think any agent can find a buyer for a house. I think from my perspective, every single thing we do is angled to making sure we find the best buyer. And by the best buyer means the best price and the best circumstance for yourself. That to me is what the 14 years experience gets you. And I guess from my background being, you know, country boy and in the army and knowing about discipline and all that sort of stuff, I like to be succinct with everything I do and make sure we tick every box to make sure that you get the result that you need and deserve.
It's a massive move to either buy or sell a house. It's an emotional move. It can be a real roller coaster. How can you accommodate that?
One of the biggest things, people get stressed when things aren't going well. I like to have a tough conversation before we start to make sure that the process runs as smoothly as we possibly can get it to go from the point we get on the market. Like, I'd rather do the hard work first and set it up perfectly so that it runs smoothly at the other end, because once you've gone on the market and you launched your property, you can't take anything back. That preparation, once again, is what I pride myself on, in making sure that we do everything we possibly can to get your house ready to sell so that it sells quickly for the best price.
What areas do you focus on?
The areas that I'm most passionate about are the areas down south on the mid-coast here, Christie's Beach, Port Noarlunga area, anywhere within sort of 5 kilometres of Colonnades, but I have been known to sell anywhere from the top of the hill all the way to Aldinga.
Tell us about investors. What is the way forward over the next 2 or 3 years?
It's definitely a very interesting time in the market. I think interesting is a word I use because there's definitely going to be some changes. It's going to be very exciting for investors, I believe. The reason that is with the changes that are coming in because of the Banking and Finance Royal Commission, that's obviously going to put some focus on the banks, and they're going to tighten up a little bit. So not as many people that are looking to borrow money will be able to, and that focus is obviously going to take some buyers out of the marketplace. Now, from an investor point of view, I believe a change in the marketplace actually presents an opportunity. And so investors then are going to be able to find better products for less amount of money, and they're probably going to be able to future-proof their portfolios by actually finding properties that have got better returns and that have better potential for capital gain in the future. For the people that are willing to do their research and be patient, really focus in on quality homes, then they are really going to benefit from the market coming up.
The Royal Commission into Banks has really thrown a black cloud over that area. Would you expect investors to be extremely cautious?
I don't think they'll be cautious because I think they're going to see value a lot more. But the thing is, with that, whether they're going to be able to borrow the money to capitalise on that is going to be an interesting thing. I think anyone that's kind of preparing for the new market coming up, those people that are looking at that properly are probably going to have to review their whole portfolio, and they may need to be able to shift stuff on that's not performing very well in order to be able to take advantage of any opportunities that do present themselves in the market coming up. Like, I think cash is definitely going to be king because the bank's going to be a bit tighter, so you may not be able to get everything from them that you actually were able to 12 months, 2 years ago.
What advice would you have for investors?
Investors really do need to have a look at their whole portfolio. I think it is a time that if you've been on a path that hasn't quite worked, now's a time to probably change that strategy. Also, be able to get ready for those opportunities when they do come up. I think anyone that kind of is wavering or doesn't act now in order to be able to capitalise is probably going to miss the opportunity.
First-time investors certainly need to get advice and not jump in at the deep end.
The one thing that we see the most lounge rooms that I sit in where someone's made a mistake, it's probably because they haven't had the right advice at the start when they go to invest. And that is a pretty painful situation because quite often that puts them off for investing for their whole life and therefore probably, limits them to what they're actually going to achieve financially, which is not where we want to be. We want to try and educate people to make sure that they do have a positive experience from investing and make sure they can achieve everything they want to achieve financially throughout their life.
What areas of the market should investors be focusing on?
I think this is really interesting because of some changes that have happened to depreciation also over the last couple of years for investors. I think investors will be turning to new housing and building new houses more than they were in the past because depreciation on second-hand housing doesn't exist anymore. So from that aspect, I think there's a lot of investors that will be changing their strategy over the next 2 years in what they actually buy. Now, that presents some pretty different opportunities because obviously the way land is in Adelaide, it's a pretty closed market. There's not a massive amount of new developments and new subdivisions that go on. It's mainly infill housing. So when we look in 5 or 10 years at what the market might actually want, I feel anything that's on a bigger block than, say, 400 or 450 square metres is going to be a pretty prized asset. So from that aspect, I'm kind of recommending and looking at investors to go, well, maybe subdividing down to 280 or 300 square metres might not be the best thing for the future because there's going to be a lot of that product around. Can we actually source something that's on a slightly bigger block that's going to be more appealing to the market in 10 or 12 years' time when you go to offload it and you've made your money? So that's kind of where I'm looking at the market to go, where are the opportunities going to be later on so we can set ourselves up for the best product then.
Would you be looking at quality investing over quantity investing?
You've got those little cliches that are real estate cliches for a reason. There's a lot of people that say never sell, always buy. Real estate's a long-term game. And I think, 10 or 15 years ago when we had the real estate booms, that kind of spoilt that a little bit. So I think that's definitely gone back to that these days. You need to have a long-term strategy. Some of the people that look at who have made mistakes, their major mistake was not predicting what their next phase of life was going to be. So they buy an investment property and then 2 years later they're getting married and having kids and they can't no longer afford the investment property and therefore have to sell it at a loss. That to me is making sure that the person is in a position to actually be able to hold that property long term so they can actually get the benefit of that investment.
So it's all about getting professional advice.
The better advice you get, the better your investment will go. I mean, an investment that doesn't make money isn't actually an investment, it's a cost. So, we want to make sure that everyone's investment property is actually an investment.
How much do you trust your instinct when making decisions?
I guess my instinct comes from 14 years of experience and all the research and effort that I put into making sure that any strategy that I recommend an owner is actually going to work. When you're confident in that and you've done the work, then you have to be confident in. And when I'm trusted with someone's asset to sell, I think that's all I owe them, is to make sure that I do the best job and do all that research so the strategy I recommend does work.
What are the biggest challenges you've faced in the 14-year career in the real estate industry?
There's been quite a few challenges. It's a challenging job when every day, when you think you've got it right, the big thing that's different about every single day is the people. And people seem to be able to get themselves in situations that I've never encountered before. So you have to think on your feet every single day. And the way that you go about something one day is definitely going to change for a different person the next. So for me, I love the challenge of working with people, but the people actually, the reason why it's so fun is because of the people that I work for. And so that challenge for me is definitely what makes it.
Scott, thanks for sharing your story with us.
No problems, Graham. It was great. Thanks for taking the time.
Pleasure.